Reason is enormously important, but reason set up as an independent voice over against or even to trump scripture and tradition becomes then a rationalism which actually is a form of sort of 18th century humanism. Now, what's happened since then, of course, is that Romanticism as an anti-rationalistic counter-movement and then existentialism have moved away from that. And I want to say we need to recapture reason. And I'm not just going back to the so-called age of reason, the 18th century. I'm going back to Richard Hooker. I'm going way, way back past him to Aquinas, to Augustine, to whoever. And I want to re-inhabit that much longer tradition. As I say, rationalism, people often now say, well, you've got scripture, tradition, and reason, as though these are separate shelves in the supermarket, and you've only got the one meal to serve, and you can choose. You can have a bit of scripture, or no, we've done that too often. Let's have some tradition, or no, we're a bit bored with that. Let's go and see what reason says, and we'll just take that all by its little self. That's not how that threefold thing was supposed to work. I say the threefold thing. Do Presbyterians talk about scripture, tradition, and reason?
No. Not in the same way.
Not in the same way. Okay.
We know scripture.
Yeah, because Methodists, of course, add experience to that. But what the Methodists meant originally by that was the Wesleyan type of deep spiritual experience, a converting experience, a deep infilling with the love and grace of God, not just experience as in whatever I have experienced in my life, which is the way it's now used. But it's quite important for Anglicans to do the scripture, tradition, and reason thing. Well, anyway, you hear what I say. So this is not, but let me also say, as a historian, I want to say the Enlightenment asked the right questions. It just provided a rather shrunken set of tools for addressing them. So it's a perfectly appropriate question in the late 18th century to say, what was Jesus really on about? What were Jesus' motives? What was his agenda? How does he relate to the politics of his day? Over against an arid dogmatism which saw Jesus simply as the one who came to teach great timeless truths and then died so that we could go to heaven or whatever. No, who was Jesus? What was he about? That's a good question. That's a good historical question. And there is such a thing as good historical method for trying to answer it, but not the rationalism which insists that the only things you will allow in history things that you can, as it were, put into a test tube, the sort of no so-called miracles, whatever. The Enlightenment brought enormous blessings. I do not want to go back to pre-Enlightenment medicine. Somebody, I forget who, said in the 19th century that a third of human misery is caused by toothache. That happily is no longer the case. I do not want to go back to pre-Enlightenment dentistry, thank you very much. Thank God for the great advances that have been made and the wonderful things that post-Enlightenment science has done. That's a given as far as I'm concerned.